Hello, my hair is wrong. I had my hair cut very recently, just before the recent lockdown, so when you watch the next episode of So Much for Pathos, it's just going to look really weird because I shot it back in October. This video is supposed to be a vlog and kind of a general recap of the year that I've had, but it kind of threatens to turn into a ramble because I sure have had a 2020. So I suppose I should start by talking about December of 2019. The Christmas period at my work was incredibly stressful, in large part because inexplicably the people in my hometown decided that they wanted to go and spend, their time in a fucking pizza place just before they head out to Christmas with their families and get together, and also because the tips that I received that year were garbage compared to the previous year. This sense of stress was further compounded by a general election in which Labour hopeful Jeremy Corbyn lost to Boris Johnson, who went on to become Prime Minister, in large part thanks to internal sabotage by Labour figureheads. At this time, I considered this too much to have to deal with, and so shamefully, I started smoking again. By the time that January 2020 rolls around, I decide to make it my New Year's resolution to kick the habit, as I had done twice before. So I decide that I am going to keep smoking until I run out of tobacco and then just go cold turkey from there. But concurrently, my dog Maisie, who had been struggling across the winter period, has slowly been losing interest in water and slowly is losing interest in eating food, and then very suddenly has trouble standing up. We rush her to the vet immediately and a stomach scan is performed, at which point we discover that it's undiagnosed liver cancer and that it's already too late to treat, and so me and Mum have to say our goodbyes right then and there. Maisie passed away peacefully an hour later with the help of the veterinarian, and I become a sobbing wreck right then and there in their office. I rethink my decision to quit smoking. In my state of despair, I put pretty much all of my time and energy into the filming and editing of the You Were Never Really Here episode of So Much for Pathos, released later that month. Retrospectively, I actually quite like that video. It adequately gets across everything that I wanted to say and do with that, but I would severely rethink my cinematography choices. I was experimenting with this new lighting kit, and I had a bunch of coloured gels, and I was trying to affect a kind of like a midnight neon red light district vibe, like to reflect the film that I was talking about, but it ends up looking kind of shoddy because of like the underexposure. Also, given the context that I've just told you about what was going on in my life around the same time, it's just really obvious to me that looking at my performance, there's something else on my mind. Shortly after that, around the time that March kicks in, we hit 2,000 subscribers. I took to Twitter and to YouTube community posts to gather together a bunch of questions for a potential Q&A video that me and Sam were supposed to do, which then gets put on hold indefinitely due to COVID lockdown restrictions. COVID was one of those things that really blindsided me because I was already aware that it was a thing back in December, but principally in the context of local Chinese restaurants seeing hostility and prejudice thanks to the locals learning about the disease. But it wasn't something that really affected me directly until it was like on my doorstep and workers were being kept home because of lockdown restrictions. My boss does me and all of my co-workers an enormous favour by booking us 2 weeks worth of paid vacation before furlough starts, meaning that when we were all in lockdown we were all paid £500 more than we are typically paid through our salary, a gesture that I could not be more grateful for. During this time, upper management gives us updates on the possibility of some restaurants being reopened during lockdown, at which point I panic because I really don't want to be made to work during a pandemic and risk catching the disease. At this point, I tell my patrons that I should be okay with regards to furlough payments, and therefore patronage has to come down to a strictly voluntary basis, meaning that I would no longer be charging my patrons for the posts that I make during lockdown. on the basis that, like, I can't in good conscience make people pay for the stuff that I do when that money could be being spent on necessities and utilities. My life essentially goes on pause at this point. Events are cancelled, my plans are altered, friends that I used to see regularly suddenly become very distant. Everything's context becomes inherently irregular, as if one had wandered into an alternate universe by mistake. During this time, Dan Olsen and Laura Crone make videos about their time during COVID, which become the most emotionally affecting things that I will see all year, and do such a good job of conveying my own thoughts and feelings more eloquently than I ever could. In the rush to get supplies before everything closes, I end up buying this comically oversized tin of beans, which is subsequently opened and then has to be allocated into about 1 million smaller tubs, because like when you open something, it starts to expire, and we just weren't going to get through that much beans in a relatively short amount of time. So there came to be this period in my house where we had like 1 million containers full of beans that were all in the freezer. Like, why did I do that? Why did I decide that we needed this giant tin of beans? Why did I do that? I think maybe I was just thinking post-apocalypse, like I panicked, okay? I decided to take lockdown as an opportunity to refocus my own priorities. I'm particularly inspired by this CGP Grey video to treat the different areas of my house as being sacred and reserved for certain specific tasks in order to maintain the health of my brain and the house. I begin the overdue effort to quit smoking, where I switch over to this vape and use progressively less and less milligrams of tobacco liquid. I begin regularly exercising, in large part thanks to DDPY, which I find very engaging and a great way to do cardio without jogging, and I begin to manage my weight, which had been steadily on the increase since 2016. And I make significant efforts to further my cooking hobby. I fried chicken for the first time, I made spaghetti meatballs, I made sloppy joes, I made several steaks. And so by the middle of the year, I'm in a relatively stable place. On May 25th, George Floyd was murdered by a police officer kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Footage of this blatant injustice goes viral and sparks a worldwide protest movement. I am angry and frustrated, and I want to do something, and I want to be part of the protests, but I don't want to go outside and risk being, exposed to the virus. And luckily for me, an alternative opens up. Kyle Calgren announces on Twitter that he's doing auditions for an online production of A Midsummer Night's Dream to raise money for America's community bail funds. I, feeling the acting bug in me once every generation, decide to audition, and I end up landing the role of Francis Flute, who is one of the terrible actors as part of the Mechanicals. My sleep schedule shifts to be part of the late night rehearsals to account for the difference in time zones, and I find myself in weekly video chats amongst a group of professional actors that I am both in awe of and nervous to be before, for fear of them discovering exactly what kind of a phony I am. Come June 20th, on the night itself, I am petrified. And before the show starts, I say, however this turns out, I love you, to the entire cast and crew. The show itself is very well received, and by the end of the night we have raised just over $5,000, which is undoubtedly a personal highlight of the year. Oh yeah, and let's just briefly sidestep the fact that on June 12th I turned 27 years old. In July, Natural Born Killers comes out, which I'm really happy with. It's probably actually my favourite episode of So Much for Pathos I've ever worked on. That said, YouTube's advertisers don't really like it because it's got some themes that advertisers aren't really fond of associating their ads with, and so it runs with limited advertising, and YouTube's algorithm somewhat quashes its traction. Disappointed, I move straight on to writing the next episode. Around this time, I finally hear from the upper management of my day job. They're planning on reopening restaurants under the new lockdown rules as part of the government's Help Out to Eat Out scheme to help ailing businesses during coronavirus. We are told to prepare for a future reopening as the company starts from a few select restaurants in London and then expands outwardly in phases. 9 phases later, and we're told by upper management that we are not going to be one of the restaurants that gets to reopen, in large part part because we didn't make enough money for the company as a whole last year and therefore cannot be justified in being kept open, hoping to use the pandemic as a convenient cover. We are offered other places to work in the branches of the company during this transition, but due to not being particularly eager to work during a pandemic, as well as being thoroughly demoralised and depressed, I allow this transition period to expire and I effectively lose my job. I sign on to Universal Credit within the end of the month, and I embarrassingly tell my patrons that I'm going to have to walk back my policy on not charging for posts anymore, which they are universally okay with. As my job seekers allowance proves insubstantial to live on, I borrow money off of a friend of mine who's more than happy to lend it to me, but I worry that I've ruined this great friendship by being in need. I continue to job search online whilst working on the next episode. I finished the new episode of So Much for Pathos and uploaded it to YouTube in early December, where it is met by a copyright claim from Studio Canal almost immediately. This is okay for me to deal with generally, so as soon as it comes in I fill out a form and send it back, and then I wait, and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. I wait for several weeks and then my claim is denied and the video ends up becoming blocked because Studio Canal thinks that their claim over footage from The Graduate in a tightly edited video essay about The Graduate is still valid. And there's a good chance that even if they do let you see it, then I'm not going to be able to monetize it, so... And that's where we are now. It does kind of suck that the new video probably isn't going to premiere in 2020, but fortunately that's just how it's going to end up being. I feel the need to end this with some kind of speech regarding what I've learned, but honestly 2020 has run so thoroughly through me that I just can't muster the enthusiasm. I'm also not particularly looking forward to 2021 either, because, like, on a personal note, 2021 is officially 10 years since I dropped out of college due to personal differences with the directors. And given how I've not really made substantial inroads with my career since then, 2021 is probably just going to remind me that I still feel like a deadbeat. I will continue with the house that Jack built and trying to turn this into a viable business that I do for the rest of my life, but in the meantime I'm just confronted by the ultimate lack of progress since I left college. I will say probably the highlight of my year is spending Christmas with my mum, because, like, for the first time I made the turkey this year. Yay! And just being with my mum just made me remember the people in my life that I care about and that care about me, and being loving and supportive. So that's affirming, I suppose. So if you wish to enable this silly nonsense, it's patreon.com/THTJB. You can follow me on Twitter @MattJCrowley. You can also follow the house that Jack built @THTJB Films. And wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a decent time and you're safe and you're with your family and that, you know, you're having a good sexy time and stuff. Me, not really so much, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be okay. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to have a little lie down.